Hey everybody, welcome back founders. We're here for segment 3, which is all about return on investment on the equipment that you currently have in your business. We are still joined here with Dustin. Dustin hasn't left, so thanks for staying the course here, Dustin.
Pleased to stay, Tanya.
So this is where your superpower comes in. I loved in the questionnaire, you listed your superpower as making more money. And this is really about making your hard-earned dollars make money for you. And I think this is where your superpower definitely probably shines here in return on the investment that founders have in their equipment. So let's just take it way back and let's just start with taking a look at your role as a lender when someone's actually considering this idea that they want a new piece of equipment. What does that typically look like for you as a lender?
It's a bit of a framework, but we call it in the industry the 3 C's of credit, if you will. So it breaks it down between what we call character, capacity, and collateral. Collateral, especially being an asset-based lending company. But each of those 3 play an equally important part in our decision-making process and what a company's borrowing capacity is and how much money we should lend to them versus, how long they've been in the industry and how well they've paid previously, that kind of stuff. The criteria within each 3 of them are simple. Character represents the company and the individual that represents that company and the character behind them. So their past pay performance, their credit bureau history, that kind of stuff gives a good indication to us on how well they will be able to perform for us if we lend them money.
Can I ask you a quick question on that?
Sure.
Are you looking at, do you look at both the business credit and the personal credit, or do you go right to business credit on that?
We start with the business credit. We try to lead with, lending. Our motto anyway within our own group is the lending should try to be based off of the strength and the power of the corporation. If it's not there for whatever reason, then we fall back to looking at, the personal credit as support.
Okay, gotcha. So, and how do you measure the character? The character, this is where you're talking about just the payment history and the past suppliers and vendors or loans that they have. What does that mean?
Yeah, that's the digital information that we have access to, right? So, what they have done in the past gets reported one way or another, so we can see that, and it helps give us an indication on what it could look like in the future, for instance. The other way is obviously, and this is how we come to our customers, or we go to our customers. So the face-to-face and getting to know people in the long term, building long-term relationships on the ground, understanding the work that they're doing, getting to know some of their customers and the feedback that they're giving in response to how well an entrepreneur performs on the job, stuff like that. That kind of all plays into the overall character piece.
Okay, gotcha. And so in your role, I actually just got off the phone with an equity lender who was talking about how oftentimes they're getting the call for money when the business is desperate, right? They're like, oh my gosh, they're trying to put out a fire and they're like, oh, we need to fix things. Do you see that oftentimes with equipment, people looking for equipment? That it's out of desperation, or again, this I want something new, that they're coming to you with blazing fires that they need to put out?
Yeah, I would say unfortunately more times or more often than not, we see those scenarios, and the power of equipment is it often carries residual value to it or equity value to it, so it can be utilized as a good piece to generate or leverage money from. So we do a lot of business in that refinance and consolidation space where we're stepping into a company, we're taking either some free and clear equipment, or we're taking out other lenders and packaging it together to create a scenario where we're either lowering monthly payments for them or injecting new capital to the company so that they can go out and either make another purchase or, put the money into hiring more people or something like that. So yeah, it's a fire is maybe not the right word all the time, but it's more reactive than it is proactive.
Yeah. Yeah. And sorry, I chuckle because I know a story where a fire actually literally took place. But I think this is a part of the tremendous value that you bring to your clients, is because I suspect, or at least with the business owners that I have worked with, they have a solution in mind. They think, oh, I just need to go get this. I need to go buy this. And what I love about the process that you implement is you just kind of stop, wait, let's question everything that we already have. Like, let's take a look at all of your existing equipment. To the point in the first episode, what is the capacity? What is the utilization? What is the useful life? And then you've brought up here another element, which is refinancing, right? We didn't even talk about that, based on the current inventory that they have, which is really about what this segment is all about: return on investment, and about building the bottom line, and recognizing that the solution that you might think is what's going to fix all the problems. It's about getting really smart with what you already have, and then starting to layer on that efficiency, right?
Absolutely.
And so, again, this is the work that I've seen you do firsthand, where it's about, before you start putting Band-Aids on things, let's just see what you have right now. Let's make sure we're really smart with what we have right now. And then let's start to look for ways that we can start to grow on what you have right now. So what do you look for outside of the character and capacity and that piece of collateral, specifically? As a lender, what else are you looking for as they start to acquire new pieces of equipment when it comes to return on investment? Or what have you seen been some of the biggest issues that curb tail, or that tend to impact the bottom line in a negative way for a business owner?
We tend to try to educate ourselves as much as we can about the industries that they're working in as well. So we, for instance, if it's a trucking company that's looking to buy a truck or a trailer, what part of that industry are they going to be using it in? Because as we've seen, unfortunately, with COVID in the last 12 months, certain segments of industry have been impacted more than others. And that also, it will impact the company's ability to repay, or the company's ability to keep that equipment working. And we want to be up on that trend as much as we can be. The other thing is the ability to have that equipment utilized elsewhere. Like, can it be shifted from one industry to another, or one industry segment to another fairly easily? So in the event that an entrepreneur or founder finds themselves in a position where the work is dried up all of a sudden, could they take that truck or that trailer and move it over somewhere else and maybe start generating some revenue with it sooner rather than later?
Okay, smart. And have you seen a lot of these founders kind of jump industries? Is that what you're referring to? Like, just find
Absolutely.
a way to pivot and support a different industry so that you can continue to bring the revenue in?
Yeah, I've seen it numerous times over the years. The forestry industry is a good example of that. When commodity prices are high and mills are doing well and the volume of wood that's going in is good, the trucking companies in the forestry industry tend to stay there. But when that dies off, I've seen their trucks repurposed to haul flatbed trailers to haul goods and goods across the country or Western Canada, something like that. So I've seen companies and entrepreneurs jump from forestry into transportation, or from construction into transportation, back and forth numerous times as the economies and the cycles change.
Yeah, super smart, right? I think especially now, like we're talking about through COVID, finding ways to show up powerfully, so that you keep your revenue strong and you're not waiting for business to come for you, right?
Yeah, it's if you think of like your own personal investments, it's almost a form of diversification in a way, right? Like you're not hedging your bet all in one. You're spreading it out a little bit.
Absolutely. And so let's talk a little bit about cash flow, because I know this is a pain point for a lot of founders when they're sitting on a big piece of equipment. I think especially in, some industries that are notorious for, 90, 120-day turnaround, and you've devoted that piece of equipment and you're not going to see cash flow from it for a while. And or it's just sitting idle, as you talked about. So what are some of the flags that you see, or what are some of the issues that you see coming up there for founders, and how do you get around that?
Yeah, the quick reference for us is obviously looking at their numbers, right? So the financial statements and stuff that they're presenting. So I mean, the biggest flag is if we're seeing drop in revenue year over year, then we're starting to question what's driving that. Especially if they're coming to us and they're asking to borrow money for new equipment. That's when we start to go back into the previous episodes that we were talking about. We go back into the utilization of their existing fleets. So, is it a shakeup that we need to do, like get rid of some old equipment or some pieces that are not being utilized anymore, and then bring in this new piece to change the dynamic of the money that's being made, or is it just an inherent industry issue, like you just caught it in a bad time and the work isn't there, and now we got to look at an alternative kind of solution.
Yeah.
But yeah, cash flow is the number one financial lending metric if you are chasing cheap borrowing costs, like the lowest cost of capital that you could obtain, from like the Schedule A banks or something like that. That would be the number one metric that they're looking at, is does the company have the ability to cash flow the debt?
Beautiful. So yeah, I think this kind of brings us full circle with this conversation, because it's top line is definitely key, right? And when we're seeing that top line revenue and that cash flow come in, we know that there's a desire, a demand, and appetite for the
Right.
product or service that you're offering. I think for those founders that are struggling right now, find ways to pivot, because there's definitely demands in other sectors. So there's certainly ways that you can go out and find additional sources of revenue, but you do need to get off your butt and make that happen. But I think, Dustin, in our work together, that one of my pain points for founders is that all they do is go after top line revenue. Right. And then at the end of the year, they're in a deficit position with their net profit. They've just, they see it 4 months after year end, after they get the notice to readers from the accountants. And so what I love that you've shared here, Dustin, is that, all of these things, from the utilization of each piece of equipment, figuring that out, the lifespan, right? The usage of, what do we call that, Dustin? What's the language around that? Useful life?
Useful life, yeah. How long is that equipment actually going to be on the ground working?
And I imagine resale value, all of that factors in, right? But it's always these small little details, all of the costs attached to each piece of equipment. You bring up a really good point about downtime and planning for that. So the real toggle here is, yes, go out, generate top line revenue, but really nuance and understand all of those inputs, from the carrying costs to the maintenance and the interest rates, and piecing that together so that you can ensure that there is a bottom line return there. I don't want to put you on the spot here. I'm curious, and so if you can't answer this, don't worry about it, but in your experience, those, let's just say best in sector, let's not go after small business, but those big businesses that you work with, the ones that have the CFOs and the COOs and the CIOs,
right?
What kind of bottom line do they typically look at in a trucking industry? Let's take trucking to start with, but on average, what would they be looking at as a healthy bottom line that they're trying to drive?
The trucking industry it's a lower margin business. It's very competitive, and of course there's segments within that, right? I'm talking about like LTL, which is less than load, or general freight businesses. That is a high competition rate, so it drives the margins down for whatever reason. But I would say the best in class companies in that space are probably looking at a 10 to 15% bottom line.
Ah, beautiful. Beautiful. I think that's a great goal to strive for. I think many businesses right now they were happy to make two. I think if businesses are breaking even right now, but again, having that benchmark to kind of work for and work towards is powerful. I love to say a 10% work towards it. So the fact that you've been seeing that is good to know, and gives us hope out there that other businesses can strive for that goal as well.
Yeah.
All right. Anything that we didn't cover? Any questions that I didn't ask you that you'd like to weigh in on, or did we cover everything that you felt is really important for business owners to know?
We've covered a lot of ground in the last 60 minutes for sure.
We did.
I grew up in a heavy construction forestry background. My father had a company and operated heavy equipment, so it's near to the heart for me. But I saw him when he struggled and when he did well. And, the biggest thing I have found is the emotional connection that founders have with their equipment can often derail them from being able to make smarter decisions about increasing their bottom line. And what I mean by that is there's an attachment to the equipment because as young boys, we love it. And then two, they feel strong about it because it's what's put the food on the table for them over the last how many years, right?
Yeah.
But what often that creates is a bit of a paradigm where they hang on to it longer than they should. They don't evaluate what to your point, the ancillary costs associated to carrying it is, and it can erode that bottom line. And let's face it, you're in business to make money, and to make money you need to increase that bottom line, right?
Music to
I think the feedback I would give is treat it like it is an investment in yourself and in your company. And you got to objectively look at it sometimes. Sometimes the equipment's not worth buying. Sometimes the equipment is worth selling rather than hanging on to it. And then sometimes the equipment is worth leveraging and borrowing off of it so that you can create the capital that you need to put it back in the company and make the money that you can.
Yeah. Well, I think again, you're music to my ears, because a big piece of what we're looking to do here with Nail the Numbers is get business owners thinking like CEOs and like investors. And you nailed it. You're not in business if you're not making money. And that money is the bottom line, right? It's, yes, top line is important, but that bottom line piece. So, and as you were speaking, I was thinking of, generations of farmers and agriculture. We didn't even talk about agriculture equipment, but the equipment that they sit on, right, that they feel that they need, and then they're only using it for X% of the year. And just such a volatile market there, right? You never know what your yields are going to be and what's, all the external considerations there, but you nailed it. I think it's about really just doing the math, doing all of the numbers, calculating to the best of your ability to mitigate the risk. That's all you can do, is mitigate to the best of your ability.
Yeah, that is, you're right. And that's what we try to help business owners understand. So we're not just lending the money, we're sitting down with them and
I love it.
Giving them a piece of advice.
That's huge. That's so valuable. And so, Dustin, again, I've seen your work in action. I have witnessed what it is that you can do for business owners. Again, it's not really about, it's not about that interest rate. It's about the value that you get from the lenders that you work with, so that you can see the full picture, because you might not need that piece of equipment. It might be about doing something a little differently with what you already have. So Dustin, I'm putting your information into the show notes, and I believe you're open to any inquiries that come out of this episode. And I encourage all of you to reach out to Dustin. Again, just a wealth of experience and knowledge and expertise, and he might have solutions for you that you've never even thought of. Right? It might not be about that new piece of equipment. It might just be about doing something differently. So. Thank you, Dustin, for your time. So appreciate it. And tune in for later this month. Actually, we have an episode with Myers Norris Penny that's talking all about debt and equipment, and how that equipment might be costing you and costing your credit report too, with sitting on all of that equipment. And so potentially some ways to deal with that. So thank you for watching. Download the tools, catch our next episode releasing next week. And as always, stay safe out there, stay strong, and stay financially fierce. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you soon. Bye for now.